Everything sucks and has become the worst version of itself. Social media personalities have plumbed new depths of degradation. Morgpie has been banned from Twitch for using her feet as a green screen.
Oh, there we go! Yes! Yeah, I need a light specifically for my feet.
But prior to that, wasn't banned for having male BDSM pets dressed in full latex gimp suits begging for affirmation and curled up in the background of her live streams. Clavicula, semi-famous for looks maxing and bone smashing with a hammer to get a better contoured face and promoting male attractiveness, wanders through garish inner-city expanses and thinly populated clubs, seemingly unable to emote, who looks bored with his own performative existence and has reduced romance and sexuality to a hollow transactional literalism.
I don't want to fuck right now. I have to fuck another girl first. I said I would. I said I'd fuck another girl.
Young people. Dating and sexual intercourse rates among young people have plummeted, as young men complain about hoflation, a term for their grievance that women who are gassed up mids have come to think of themselves as special and worthy only of high-value men. In an age of hypergamy, the practice of dating someone with a higher social status, wealth, or perceived mating value. Meanwhile, young women believe young men are misogynistic, self-involved, or homosocially trying to impress or mog each other. Men. In a bitter age of enshittification, men are to blame for everything the mind can conceive of. Men are to blame for taking up space in society. Men are to blame for human mutation. Masculinity is to blame for this person's childhood friends being dead. Men are to blame for women investing less than men. Men are to blame for menopause. Men are to blame for the climate crisis. Men are to blame for the motherhood penalty, whatever that is. Men are to blame for being threatened by women who are just living their lives. Men are to blame for women's headache pain. Men are to blame for cats meowing too loudly. Men are to blame for dying before women. Men are to blame for female unplanned childlessness. Men are to blame for making life for single women worse. Men are to blame for women being turned off by men who take pride in their appearance. Men are to blame for taking too much interest in AI. Men are to blame for a lazy habit of not updating their social media profiles. Men are to blame for making the dating scene in Ukraine less optimal. Men are to blame for winning the culture war. Men are to blame for not liking Chappell Roan, even though she said, "I don't think men make good art." Men are to blame for punishing women for Me Too and avoiding women at work. Men are to blame for coming to resent the woman they're with for being attractive. Men are to blame for women blaming other women. Men are to blame for harassing women in gaming. Men are to blame for wanting to be popular. Men are to blame for assuming gold diggers are gold diggers. Men are to blame for not catching up with the new rules of society. Men and masculinity are to blame for the algorithm being male chauvinist. Men are to blame for menus being misogynist. Men are to blame for shaming women who are overweight and for shaming women for being underweight. Men are to blame for AI reinforcing gender bias. Men are to blame for becoming more conservative. Men are to blame for leaving the labor force. And men are to blame for working longer hours in the labor force. Entertainment. What's truly extraordinary is how classic franchises have become the worst possible versions of themselves. For this to happen to one franchise would be confounding, but to be chronic across all classic franchises is somehow malevolent, an entertainment equivalent of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or The Nothing from The Never-Ending Story, or like Room 101 from 1984, where your worst terrors are customized for maximum trauma. In a paradoxical way, modern entertainment's hideousness is so perfect that, like the robot Ash in Alien, I almost admire it for its purity. A soulless, girl-boss Indiana Jones that for some reason was debuted at Cannes. Star Wars, where the legacy heroes are deconstructed and devalued and the cultural magic of the original films is reduced to the pointless boredom of The Mandalorian. Star Trek, where the optimism is replaced with a nihilistic pessimism, and the nerdy science with brain-dead teen drama. And Lord of the Rings with a Puerto Rican elf and people shipping for final girl boss Galadriel and looks-maxing Sauron. There's a strange part of me that feels flattered. that my appreciation of these beloved franchises was in such urgent need of deconstruction and reinvention that billions of dollars and thousands of hours were devoted to systematically excising all hope and enjoyment from them, leaving only the erasure of an entertainment existential void like that of THX 1138, where I'm poked and prodded by faceless automatons of a modernity that operates in mindless abeyance to a Hollywood system that exists only to perpetuate itself. It's been quite a sacrifice on Hollywood's part. In Los Angeles, entertainment sector employment has fallen by tens of thousands. Visual effects houses, editors, set designers, and below-the-line crew have all been hit particularly hard as studios slash budgets. Worse by far than all of this? Aqua, the group behind consumerist parody pop song Barbie Girl, have announced their band breakup. This is a shock and a blow to all devotees of Aqua who have always kept a bittersweet belief that the 90s pop group would re-emerge with the zeitgeist-defining album we all felt they were capable of. That the band, with its synth-driven tunefulness, would be able to lift the spirits of a woebegone culture with an irresistible second pop classic, that there would be an aquasance, and that it is, therefore, both a spurning of their fans and their own potential, and an unnecessary, rash closure of an integral part of the narrative of popular entertainment. Identity. In this era in which everything sucks and is the worst version of itself, we have to contend with inclusivity inflation, the disassembling of identity into a sprawl of categories, and the heightened sensitivity to not being seen to be inclusive has led to strings of letters longer than most actual words, culminating with the acronym apotheosis of MMIWG2SLGBTQQIA+.
Deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIWG2SLGBTQQIA+.
I suppose it is incumbent upon me to do the remixes.
MMIWG2SLGBTQQIA+ people. MMIWG2SLGBTQQIA people.
MMIWG2SLGBTQIA+ people.
The past. In the modern age, a strange controversy emerged surrounding the release of a new film version of Wuthering Heights, that casting white actor Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff is racially insensitive. Those complaining weren't doing so because of their fan fiction headcanon. They believed it is actual canon that Emily Bronte wrote a biracial romance in early 1800s Yorkshire. No one reading Bronte at the time would have thought to picture Heathcliff as black or South Asian. William Shakespeare was a black Jewish woman, according to a new book. It claims that the truth of Shakespearean authorship has been hidden by centuries of Western-centric and Eurocentric ideology. So Shakespeare had the chutzpah to model Shylock off her dad and Othello off her uncle. The National Gallery displays John Constable's famous 1821 painting, The Haywain, depicting a rural landscape near Constable's native Suffolk. But some critics say the scene doesn't depict the poorer workers of the time, many of whom were suffering from hunger and poverty. Therefore, the painting has been displayed as a contested landscape. Yes, the painting, a British classic, is a contested landscape because it doesn't include a pair of bony, stooped old men in rags worn to a shadow with beady eyes and rickets dawdling somewhere in the background. Let's add some similar characters to classic paintings, so they also don't become contested. That's better. The Guildhall Museum in Rochester exists, in part, to present the work of Charles Dickens to the public, which in 2026 consists of denouncing him for having an idea of racial superiority, according to internal guidance produced by the museum. Today, we reject his views. Dickens' views on race can have no place in our society. It adds, pointing to a vociferous intolerance which he expressed in grossly offensive terms. The museum has artfully dodged the reality that the Victorians thought differently to us, but you will benefit from their moral rectitude. The past is such a precious thing to maintain, but there is also no need, indeed it is folly, for a pop group still brimming with talent and potential to abruptly and stingingly announce what to many is a clearly premature breakup, especially when that act has, until recently, been an entity of positive vibes and demonstrably strong compositional and performance talent and natural chemistry within that band. Every city they fetch up and being irresistibly caught up in a collective spirit of nostalgia and evergreen cultural relevance. Why would you throw that away? Academia and creativity. People are outsourcing their brains, creativity, and workflow, and even much of their identity to AI. After a popular novel was found to have been written mostly by AI, another scandal broke when it was discovered that a regional winner in the prestigious Commonwealth Writers' Prize, whose work was published in the equally prestigious Granta magazine, was a load of AI bollocks.
Bastards! Bastards! Bastards!
What's troubling isn't just these big examples, it's the flattening out of what talent actually is. An average writer utilizing AI can make their writing exponentially better, even publishable, if they are adept at prompting AI and at augmenting, decorating, and punching up their prose with what the AI provides them. Therefore, there is now a disheartening subjectivity, a huge mass of reasonably good, reasonably publishable prose from mediocre people, with genuine writers getting lost in the sludge. The same applies to academic subjectivity. The ability of teachers and professors to discern what is what. Not wholesale products of AI, but lines, phrases, argument chains, paragraphs, manufactured thought, and regurgitated conclusions. The whole system has been contaminated and corrupted, with academics or even everyday classroom teachers hardly able to know if brilliant flashes of controlled and astute writing are the encouraging efforts of promising students or just nests of cut and pastes and slight rephrasing. Average reading ability and reading stamina are declining. People still read, but much of it is fragmented, short-form, and screen-based. In the US, national literacy and comprehension testing has shown notable declines in reading scores over the past decade. Universities increasingly report that students struggle with completing long novels, following layered arguments, or maintaining concentration through dense texts. But even as standards are getting lower, grades are going the opposite direction. Gradeflation has accelerated markedly, with top marks becoming increasingly common. In the US, average GPAs have climbed from roughly 2.5 in the 1960s to well above 3.1 today. While at elite universities, A-range grades now often constitute the majority of marks awarded. The inflation of grades undermines academic distinction, weakens standards, and leaves employers unable to differentiate between exceptional students and merely competent ones. Everything sucks and is the worst version of itself. But if you ever think it can't get any worse, don't worry. Paramount is developing a new Godfather sequel from a woman's point of view. It's called Connie, a feminist retelling of the Godfather events. We finally found the bottom. It's a strange, almost cathartic feeling that, without knowing what form it would take, we would inevitably end up in this cultural finale. I feel an airy kind of camaraderie with you in sharing it.